Okay, next we have Purdue, yet another team that's at 7.5 for their win
Okay.
total. 9-4 a year ago, 6-3 in conference. About 25th per the advanced stats. Jeff Brom is entering his sixth season. Quarterback Aiden O'Connell, you mentioned it earlier, like probably the only really good quarterback in this division that we know will be good. Plenty of receiving options. The defense was actually sneaky good last year. They did lose, obviously, some great players, including their defensive end, whose name escapes me for some reason.
George Karloftis.
George Karloftis. Yes, I'm sorry. No reason to forget that name. Anyway, Purdue is. I kind of trust them. Why do I trust them so much? Jeff Brom actually did a good job there the last number of years, and I think we kind of forgot about him before last year because the results weren't quite showing up the way they had earlier in his tenure. And then last year they go and win 9 games, including a bowl win against Tennessee. Like that's a big deal.
There's I think the reason for trust is simply because they have a quarterback that we feel good about winning a football game for you.
Yeah.
Aiden O'Connell is probably the only guy in the West that you could have a 2-minute drive and be like, I actually kind of like our chances, with all the rest of them, it's like, no, we're done. But like Purdue is, you kind of feel half decent. And I think maybe we're overvaluing the quarterback there a little bit. Like,
sure,
he is good. There's no doubt. And we saw him throw for a whole bunch of yards. Great. They're sneaky. They like to upset top teams. We know that. Like they didn't get it done against Ohio State. They got bombed by Ohio State, but they did get Michigan State, right? They got
right.
Michigan State last year. When Michigan State was I think they were top 5 when they played them. And so like we kind of have this thing that like they tend to play up to their competition, Purdue. And maybe that leads us to think that they're better long term. I'm not really sure. Losing what the wide receiver, David Bell, is that's a blow. Like you don't really have guys, just sitting there to replace. The number is 7.5, right? We have the number at 7.5.
Basically, every team in the division is at 7.5.
Right, correct. So literally, it's Nebraska, Iowa, Purdue, and one more. I think
Minnesota, I believe.
Yeah, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go under. I think 7-5, maybe 6-6 is probably more likely. I think it's maybe a step back. I mean, it is. Okay, they're not going to go 9-4 again. Like I'll say that. They're not going to go 9-4. I think they're going to have a slight step back. Maybe more reality, I guess you could say. It's like a little bit of a gut check for Purdue this year.
Yeah, I also have them at 7-5 this year, which is one game worse in the regular season than a year ago. So it's not a huge drop off. 8-4 a year ago, and they'd have to repeat that to hit the over here. I'm more betting on just some of the other teams in the West figuring out a little bit more and getting them. I actually think their schedule is a little bit easier than last year. They don't have Ohio State and Notre Dame on this year.
Right.
I feel good about Purdue going 7-5. Like to me, that feels about right this season.
Why is it the feel? Like last year, had they not got Ohio State, you said they got Purdue. Notre Dame. They got Notre Dame in non-conference.
Last year, yes.
Yeah.
They lost to Notre Dame by two touchdowns a year ago.
So, like, say they had avoided them, they could have say they had avoided them and had, like 2 layups, you could have potentially like talked, like 10-2. Like
sure.
Double digit wins for like Purdue. That's wild. Like that's kind of a wild thing. But anyway, it didn't happen. So I'm going to go under. We have agreement there on the under. Is that right?
Yes, just slightly. I mean, yeah. But like what you were saying, to your point about last year, like I do think some of that is just the fact that the Big Ten West was pretty bad last year. And they took advantage, as you should. So well done. This is not a knock on them at all. I just think that if the division rises a bit, maybe it drags Purdue down just a game. So
still a successful year though.
For absolutely,
Purdue. Yes. 7-5 is a good record for Purdue.
Yeah.